Catherine Wallace handed Sarah the divorce papers and told her she was facing criminal charges, right there in the middle of her own anniversary dinner. The Westmore Club's private dining room glowed with old money. Crystal chandeliers, mahogany panels, the kind of silence that comes from generations of wealth. Everything was elegant until that moment. Catherine Wallace, poised and lethal, smiled as if offering a blessing. She placed a leather folder in front of Sarah. "Before we toast," she said, her voice silk wrapped around steel. Across the table, Natalie raised her phone to record. The camera caught the exact second Sarah opened the folder. No anniversary wishes, no family warmth, just divorce papers. And beneath them, forged documents accusing her of embezzlement. Cold, calculated, devastating. The room held its breath. Sarah stared at the papers for a long, terrible moment. Her husband Brian wouldn't meet her eyes. Then she reached into her purse, her fingers finding her own phone. A smile touched her lips, quiet and sharp. A smile that changed everything at that table. Because sometimes the very moment people expect you to shatter is the one where you finally expose the truth. Stay with this story. It might be yours, too. Sarah's office at Tech Vision Solutions overlooked Boston Harbor, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the water like expensive art. Corporate Communications Director. Corner office. Six-figure salary. Everything she'd worked for since leaving Philadelphia. But that Tuesday afternoon, she sat at her mahogany desk feeling like she was drowning in shallow water. The email she'd just sent used 17 words where 5 would do. Professional voice. Careful voice. The voice that never gave them a reason to call her aggressive or difficult or any of the other words they saved for women who looked like her. The envelope arrived by courier at 3:47 p.m. Plain manila, no return address. Inside, 3 photographs printed on glossy paper. Brian and a blonde woman outside his law firm. Brian and the same woman at a restaurant Sarah recognized. Brian and the woman's hands intertwined across a table. Beneath the photos, a note in neat handwriting. Anniversary dinner. 7 days. Be ready. Sarah's hands shook. 5 years ago, meeting Brian had felt like a fairy tale. Professional conference in New York, his easy smile across the networking reception, the way he'd listen when she talked about her Howard University thesis. Their first date lasted 6 hours. He'd proposed on a beach in Martha's Vineyard at sunset, and for one perfect moment, Sarah believed she could have it all. The career, the love, the acceptance she'd been chasing her whole life. Then she'd met Catherine. Elegant, smiling Catherine with her perfectly highlighted hair and her careful words. "Welcome to the family, dear. You know, Brian dated a girl from Wellesley before you. Lovely girl. But I'm sure you'll fit in just fine." That first microaggression disguised as warmth. The first of hundreds. Sarah grabbed her phone, fingers trembling as she dialed. Dee answered on the first ring. "Tell me you finally see it." Her best friend said, "No greeting, just knowing. Tell me you're done making excuses for them. I got photos. Brian's cheating. And there's a note about the anniversary dinner. They're coming for you. Sarah, this is the trap. Fight back." Sarah hung up and opened her phone's voice memo app. 2 years of recordings. Catherine's voice saying things she'd never say in public. "I don't care how articulate she is, she's still." The word that followed made Sarah's stomach turn every time. Other recordings. Family dinners where they talked around her like she was furniture. Catherine's phone calls to Sarah's colleagues, planting seeds of doubt. Evidence. Strategy. Documentation. She'd been collecting it without fully admitting why. She could pack a bag tonight, file for divorce quietly, disappear with whatever dignity they'd let her keep. Or she could do what every instinct told her was dangerous. She could fight. Sarah pulled up her contacts, scrolling to a name she'd saved 6 months ago after a women's leadership panel. Victor Ortiz. civil rights attorney. The panelist who'd said, "Document everything. The truth is your best weapon." Her finger hovered over the call button. This was the moment. Stay silent and survive. Or speak up and risk everything. She pressed call. "Mr. Ortiz? My name is Sarah Wallace. I need to build a case." 6 days before the dinner, Sarah sat on her living room floor, surrounded by evidence. Laptop open. Phone connected to external speakers. Notebook filled with dates and times in her neat handwriting. She'd started organizing at 7 that morning, and now the afternoon light slanted through the windows, turning everything amber. Brian was at the office. Or with Rebecca. Sarah didn't care anymore which lie he was telling. She pressed play on the first recording. Catherine's voice filled the room, crystal clear. "Christmas dinner, 2 years ago. Where are you really from, Sarah?" "No, I mean originally. Your people." Sarah remembered smiling through it, explaining again that her family had been in Philadelphia for 3 generations. Catherine's response, "How interesting. So urban." Next recording. Thanksgiving last year. Catherine to her sister-in-law, not realizing Sarah was in the hallway. "Well, she's very articulate for someone from that kind of background. You'd hardly know. The kind of poison that sounded like a compliment if you weren't paying attention." Another. Easter brunch. "Has anyone in your family actually gone to college before you, dear? It must be so isolating for you, being the first. No one to guide you." Sarah had her master's degree. Her father was a postal worker who read 3 newspapers a day. Her mother ran the church's financial committee. But to Catherine, they were invisible. Sarah clicked through the files methodically. 47 recordings total. Each one a paper cut that had bled her slowly over 4 years. Family dinners where conversations stopped when she entered the room. Catherine's commentary on Sarah's hair, always wrapped in false concern. "Have you considered something more professional? Something less?" She'd never finished that sentence. She didn't have to. The comments about Sarah's clothes. "That's very colorful. Bold choice for the office." Translation: tone it down, blend in, disappear. She created a timeline document, cross-referencing each incident with dates and witnesses. Victor had told her documentation was everything. Pattern over time. Systematic behavior. This wasn't insensitivity. It was cruelty with a smile. Then Sarah opened the estate planning folder on her laptop. She'd started researching 6 months ago when Brian mentioned updating their will. Just being responsible. Just being thorough. That's when she found the Wallace family trust documents Brian had left in his study. That's when the numbers stopped making sense. The trust had been worth $4.8 million when Brian's father died 5 years ago. Based on conservative investments and documented withdrawals for legitimate family expenses, it should be worth approximately $5.2 million now. The current balance showed $3.1 million. $2 million. Gone. Sarah pulled up the transaction records she'd photographed from Brian's study. Wire transfers to offshore accounts. Cash withdrawals labeled as property maintenance for buildings that didn't exist. Catherine's signature on every document. She'd been stealing from her own family for years. Sarah's hands moved quickly. Copy files to encrypted cloud storage. Download to 3 separate flash drives. Send compressed files to Victor's secure server. Every backup an insurance policy against deletion. At 2 in the morning, Sarah was still awake, scrolling through PDFs of Brian's father's will. She'd requested it from the county records office, paying the fee with cash. Page 12 made her freeze. A specific bequest to Sarah Wallace, daughter-in-law, in appreciation for bringing joy to my son's life. I leave the sum of $500,000 to be paid from the estate within 60 days of my death. 5 years ago, Sarah had received nothing. No check. No notification. Brian had never mentioned it. Catherine, as executor, would have processed it. Sarah did the math. With interest, that inheritance would be worth nearly $600,000 now. Catherine hadn't just stolen from the family trust. She'd stolen directly from Sarah. Sarah saved the document, added it to her evidence folder, and smiled in the darkness. Sometimes the people who try to destroy you hand you the weapons themselves. 5 days before the dinner, Sarah sat in her car outside Brian's law firm, engine off, watching. The building's glass facade reflected the evening sky, turning pink then purple as the sun disappeared. She'd told herself she wouldn't do this. But after finding the photos, after discovering the embezzlement, she needed to see it with her own eyes. Needed to confirm what her gut had been screaming for months. At 6:43, Brian emerged. Not alone. The blonde from the photographs walked beside him, laughing at something he'd said. Rebecca Langford, senior associate, daughter of some Connecticut family with a summer house in the Hamptons. Sarah watched them walk 3 blocks to a wine bar, watched Brian's hand settle on the small of Rebecca's back as he opened the door. Casual, familiar, practiced. Sarah's memory dragged her backward 6 months. Catherine's casual dinner party. Just family and a few colleagues, Catherine had said. Sarah had worked late, arrived after appetizers. When she walked into the dining room, there was Rebecca seated next to Brian, both of them laughing over some private joke. Catherine had smiled, all warmth and welcome. Sarah, darling, you're here. This is Rebecca Langford. She just joined Brian's firm. I thought it would be nice for them to get acquainted. Get acquainted. Sarah remembered the way Catherine had steered the conversation all night, drawing out Rebecca's pedigree like she was appraising jewelry. The Connecticut Langfords, how lovely. Your mother and I served on the MFA board together. The way she'd asked Rebecca about her family's sailboat, her skiing trips to Aspen, her undergraduate years at Yale. Every question designed to highlight everything Rebecca was that Sarah wasn't. White, wealthy, connected, suitable. And then, weeks later, Catherine's comments during their usual Sunday brunch. Brian seems happier lately. Rebecca's been such a good influence at the firm. She's so suitable, such a good family background. The emphasis on suitable, like a blade pressed to Sarah's throat. Catherine had been planting seeds, watering them, watching them grow. Sarah drove home, hands steady on the wheel, mind racing. She found Brian in their kitchen, tie loosened, pouring scotch. He looked up when she entered, guilt flickering across his face before he hit it. We need to talk, Sarah said. Sarah, her name is Rebecca. She watched him freeze. Don't insult me with denials. I saw you. Tonight. And I've seen the photos. Brian's shoulders sagged. It's not what you think. Then what is it? You're always at work. His voice rose, defensive, rehearsed. You don't try with my family. You make everything difficult. My mother tries so hard with you, and you just. Your mother set this up, didn't she? The question landed like a slap. Brian's mouth opened, closed. His silence was the answer Sarah needed. She introduced you too. She praised her constantly. She positioned Rebecca as everything I'm not. Sarah's voice stayed calm, cold. Tell me I'm wrong. Brian stared at his scotch. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The expectations. My mother just wants what's best for me. And I'm not it. Not a question. A statement. He didn't deny it. Couldn't even look at her. Sarah picked up her phone from the counter. I'm moving into the guest room. We'll keep pretending everything's fine until after the anniversary dinner. You owe me that much. Sarah, don't. She walked toward the stairs, then turned back. Does Rebecca know she's a pawn in your mother's game? Or does she actually think you love her? Brian had no answer for that either. In the guest room, Sarah called Dee. I need a private investigator. Someone good. I need every meeting, every hotel, every lie documented. I know someone, Dee said. He's discreet and thorough. I'll text you his number. Thank you. Sarah? You're doing the right thing. Sarah looked at her reflection in the darkened window, recognized the woman staring back finally. Not the one who swallowed insults and smiled through racism, but someone else. Someone who'd had enough. I know, Sarah said. I should have done it years ago. For days before the dinner, Natalie's text arrived with artificial brightness. Hey, Sarah. Been thinking about you. Want to grab lunch today? Just us girls? Miss you. 3 exclamation points. Natalie never used exclamation points. Sarah stared at her phone, reading the subtext underneath the enthusiasm. Reconnaissance. They were sending in the sister-in-law to probe for weaknesses, to gather intelligence Catherine could weaponize. Sarah typed back, would love to. Bistro on Newberry at noon. She'd play along. Let them think she was still the accommodating daughter-in-law who never saw the knife until it was already in her back. The restaurant was all white tablecloths and hushed conversations. Natalie arrived 10 minutes late. Designer bag, perfect highlights, the smile that never quite reached her eyes. They ordered salads neither of them would finish. The small talk lasted exactly 4 minutes before Natalie's question started, casual as poison in sweet tea. So how's work? Any big projects? Translation, are you distracted enough not to notice what's coming? Sarah smiled. Busy as always. Just closed a major deal actually. That's wonderful. And you're managing okay? Not too stressed. Translation, are you vulnerable? I'm great actually. Never better. Natalie's fingers played with her wine glass. And you and Brian? Everything good with you too? There it was. The real question. Why do you ask? Oh, no reason. Just, you both seem so busy. Catherine mentioned she hardly sees you anymore. Sarah cut her salmon precisely, thinking about all the times over 4 years Natalie had played this role. The concerned text to Brian about Sarah's attitude at family dinners. The jokes about interracial couples that weren't quite jokes. You know what they say, once you go black. Trailing off into laughter that made Sarah's skin crawl. The way Natalie would post family photos on social media, carefully cropping Sarah out of group shots. The birthday party invitations that somehow never made it to Sarah's inbox. Natalie had always been Catherine's soldier. The younger lieutenant carrying out orders, softening up the target before the main assault. Sarah remembered Thanksgiving 2 years ago when Natalie had cornered her in the kitchen. You have to understand, Catherine just wants what's best for Brian. She worries you're not equipped for this life. No offense. Every offense intended. Sarah, Natalie's voice pulled her back to the present. You seem distracted. Just thinking. Sarah leaned forward, playing the part. Can I ask you something? Do you think your family likes me? Natalie's eyes widened, scenting blood in the water. Of course we do. Why would you ask that? Sometimes I feel like I don't quite fit in. Like I'm always trying to prove myself. Oh, Sarah. Natalie reached across the table, squeezed her hand. The gesture of a friend. The grip of a spy reporting back to headquarters. Your family. We love you. The lie sat between them like spoiled food. They parted with their kisses and promises to do this again soon. Sarah watched Natalie walk away, phone already out, probably texting Catherine a full report. Sarah is clueless, emotional, questioning herself, vulnerable, perfect. That night, Sarah sat in her home office, headphones on, listening to her recordings again. Catherine's voice, Natalie's voice, Brian's complicit silence. Each file another layer of armor. She wasn't the problem. She never had been. Her phone rang at 9. Victor Ortiz. I've reviewed everything you sent. Sarah, you have more than enough to destroy them. The racism, the embezzlement, the orchestrated affair, your stolen inheritance. This isn't a case. It's a massacre. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. I just wanted them to love me, she said finally, hating how small her voice sounded. I worked so hard. I was so careful. I thought if I just kept trying, kept being perfect, they'd finally see me as family. Sarah. Victor's voice was gentle but firm. They never will. Catherine sees you as a threat to her control over Brian. Natalie follows her mother's lead. And Brian? He's too weak to choose you over them. You could be perfect for 1,000 years, and it wouldn't matter. Because this isn't about you. It's about them. Then what do? You stop trying to earn love from people who are incapable of giving it. And you love yourself enough to fight back. You love yourself enough to walk away from people who made you feel like you had to earn basic human dignity. Sarah closed her eyes, felt something shift in her chest. Permission. To be angry. To fight back. To stop shrinking herself to fit into spaces that were never meant for her. Okay, she said. Let's finish building this case. That's my client, Victor said. 3 more days, Sarah. Then you show them exactly who they've been underestimating. After they hung up, Sarah opened a new document on her laptop. Started typing. A timeline of the dinner. What she would say. How she would say it. The evidence she would present in what order. She worked until midnight, building her strategy like a general planning a battle. Because that's what it was now. War. And Sarah was finally ready to stop being the casualty. 3 days before the dinner, Brian made the announcement over breakfast. He didn't look up from his coffee. Mom's reserved the Westmore Club for our anniversary. This Saturday. Just family. 7 o'clock. Sarah's hand paused halfway to her mouth. Toast forgotten. The Westmore Club. Catherine's territory. Old money and older power. A private dining room where witnesses would be carefully selected, where exits could be controlled, where Sarah would be surrounded by people who'd never once defended her. Just family, Sarah repeated. How intimate. Brian missed the edge in her voice. Or pretended to. Mom wanted to do something special. Special. Sarah almost laughed. This was it. The ambush. The anonymous note had warned her, and now the trap was set. 3 days to prepare for whatever Catherine had planned. Sarah spent the morning organizing her evidence. Every recording transferred to her phone, backed up to 3 separate cloud accounts. Documents photographed and encrypted. Timeline printed and memorized. She created a folder on her phone labeled Simply Truth. Easy to access. Impossible to accidentally delete. Each file named and time-stamped. Catherine's racism. Brian's affair. The embezzlement. Her stolen inheritance. Everything organized like ammunition. She remembered the day she'd started recording. 2 years ago. She'd arrived early to Catherine's house for Sunday brunch. Let herself in with the key Brian insisted she keep. She was in the hallway when she heard Catherine's voice from the kitchen, talking to someone on speakerphone. I don't care how many degrees she has. Brian married beneath him, and we all know it. That woman is exactly what you'd expect from that kind of neighborhood. Aggressive, entitled, probably only married him for the money. The venom in Catherine's voice was pure, undisguised. No performance. Just hatred. Sarah had stood frozen in that hallway, phone in her hand, something breaking inside her. Then she'd pressed record. Later that week, she'd called Dee, voice shaking as she played back the audio. Dee's response was immediate. Massachusetts is one-party consent. You can legally record any conversation you're part of or can reasonably overhear. Document everything, Sarah. Every single thing. So she had. For 2 years. Building her case without fully admitting what it was for. Now, 3 days before the ambush, Sarah made another call. Her company's legal department. Then a meeting with her boss, Margaret Shun, whose corner office overlooked the same harbor Sarah had once thought represented her success. Margaret, someone may contact you with false allegations about me, Sarah said, voice steady. I can't give you details yet, but I wanted you to hear it from me first. Whatever they claim, it isn't true. Margaret studied her for a long moment. Sarah braced herself for doubt, for the careful corporate distance that came when scandal threatened. Instead, Margaret leaned forward. Sarah, I've worked with you for 6 years. I know your character. I know your work. If someone comes at you with lies, they'll have to go through me first. Sarah's throat tightened. Thank you. Whatever you're dealing with, don't face it alone. We have lawyers. Resources. Use them. That night, Sarah stood in front of her bedroom mirror, practicing. Imagining Catherine's face across a table. The leather folder. Whatever accusation was coming. She practiced her response. Calm. Controlled. Devastating. She practiced pulling out her phone, opening the folder labeled Truth, pressing play. She practiced the words she'd say before she walked out. She practiced walking away. Brian came into the bedroom late, smelling of scotch and guilt. He approached her from behind, hands on her shoulders, lips against her neck. Tentative. Apologetic without apologizing. Sarah stood still, watching them in the mirror, seeing what she'd been too afraid to see before. This wasn't desire. This was goodbye. He was trying to bank one last moment of intimacy before whatever was coming. Before his mother destroyed their marriage, and he let it happen. Before he chose Catherine over Sarah one final, irreversible time. Brian, Sarah said softly. Do you love me? His hands stilled. The pause stretched too long. Of course, he said finally. The words arrived 3 seconds too late to be true. Sarah stepped away from him, turned to face him directly, looked at the man she'd married 5 years ago, searching for any trace of the person she'd fallen in love with. Found only a coward who'd painted his weakness as peacekeeping. 3 days, she said. After the dinner, we should talk. Really talk. Something flickered in his eyes. Relief, maybe. Or resignation. Okay, he said. After the dinner. He left the room. Sarah heard the guest room door close down the hall. She turned back to her mirror, studied her own reflection. The woman looking back at her wasn't the one who'd married Brian. Wasn't the one who'd spent 4 years trying to earn Catherine's approval. This woman had recorded 47 instances of racism, had uncovered embezzlement, had documented an orchestrated affair, had built a case. 3 days. Then the Westmore Club. Then the truth. Sarah smiled at her reflection. Ready or not? She whispered to Catherine's ghost, Here I come. The Westmore Club rose from Beacon Hill like a monument to inherited privilege. Stone facade. Brass fixtures polished to mirrors. A doorman who knew every member's name going back 3 generations. Sarah's heels clicked against marble as she entered, the sound swallowed by cathedral ceilings and the weight of old money. This was the Wallace family's domain, their hunting ground. Catherine had chosen the battlefield carefully. Sarah had chosen her armor just as carefully. White dress, fitted, elegant. The color of brides and angels and fresh starts. But also the color of flags before battle. The color of surrender that wasn't surrender at all but declaration. She'd worn her hair natural, full, unapologetic. Diamond studs her mother had given her for graduate school. She looked powerful because she was powerful. She just hadn't let them see it yet. Catherine waited in the private dining room, already holding court. Champagne in hand, pearls at her throat, smile practiced to perfection. Sarah, darling, she said, approaching with arms open. The air kisses landed like small violences on each cheek. That dress. How bold. Translation, inappropriate. Too much. Wrong. Thank you, Catherine. You look lovely as always. For years. Catherine's hand on Sarah's arm, gripped just slightly too tight. Where does the time go? Where indeed? For years of this. For years of smiling through paper cuts. Brian stood near the window, scotch already in hand though they'd just arrived. When Sarah looked at him, he studied the carpet. Couldn't meet her eyes. Guilt hung on him like cheap cologne. Natalie bustled over, phone already out, smile bright as broken glass. Let me get some photos. Anniversary dinner. So special. The camera pointed at Sarah like a weapon. Click, click. Just capturing memories, Natalie said. But Sarah knew. Evidence. They wanted Sarah's reaction documented. The moment of her humiliation preserved forever. They sat. The table was set with crystal and china that cost more than most people's cars. Champagne poured. Appetizers arrived on plates too beautiful to be functional. Conversation flowed around Sarah like water around a stone. Catherine's friends, because of course there were witnesses, carefully selected witnesses, discussed their summer houses, their charitable foundations, their children's accomplishments. Sarah participated, smiled, played her part, the whole time feeling like she was sinking in quicksand, the small talk pulling her under inch by inch. Catherine stood, glass raised. The room quieted immediately. That's how power worked here. Catherine commanded, and the world obeyed. A toast, she said, smile warming the room like stage lights. To Brian and Sarah. For years of marriage. For years of... She paused, letting the silence build, learning and growth. To 4 years. Her eyes found Sarah's across the table. And to new beginnings. New beginnings. The words landed like stones. Everyone drank. Sarah's champagne tasted like metal. Catherine set her glass down. The sound punctuated the moment like a gavel. Her smile shifted, hardened at the edges. The performance was ending. The truth was beginning. Before we continue with dinner, Catherine said, voice still warm but now edged with steel, there's something Sarah needs to see. She produced a leather folder. The kind lawyers used for important documents. The kind that contained life-changing papers. She placed it in front of Sarah with the ceremony of someone presenting a gift. Or a sentence. Sarah's hands trembled as she opened it. Couldn't help that. But her face stayed composed. Divorce papers. Her name. Brian's name. Dissolution of marriage. She'd expected this. The anonymous note had warned her. But beneath the divorce papers, more pages. Financial documents. Bank statements. Her signature. Except it wasn't her signature. Close enough to fool someone who didn't know. Allegations typed in legal language. Embezzlement. Fraud. Theft from TechVision Solutions. Dollar amounts. Dates. A case built entirely on lies, but documented like truth. We've done our due diligence, Catherine said softly. Each word perfectly measured, perfectly delivered. These documents show a disturbing pattern of financial impropriety. Theft from your employer over the course of 18 months. Sarah looked up. The room watched her. Catherine's friends. The Wallace family members she barely knew. Brian, still unable to meet her eyes. Natalie with her phone out, recording everything. We've already contacted your employer, Catherine continued. And the authorities. We're protecting Brian, you understand. Protecting the family from your... She paused, let the word hang in the air, complications. The silence pressed down like a funeral. This was the moment. The trap springing shut. Catherine had built this perfectly. Public humiliation. Criminal accusations. Professional destruction. All delivered with champagne and crystal in a private room where Sarah had no allies, no escape, no defense. Except Sarah had been building her own case for 2 years. Her hand found her phone in her purse. Thumb hovering over the folder labeled Truth. She looked at Catherine across the table. At Brian's bowed head. At Natalie's recording phone. At the carefully selected witnesses waiting for her to break. Sarah smiled. Quiet. Sharp. The kind of smile that changed everything. Catherine, she said, voice steady as a heartbeat. Before you continue, there's something everyone needs to hear. The room held its breath. This was the moment they'd all come to witness. Sarah's breakdown. Her collapse under the weight of Catherine's perfectly constructed accusations. The other family members leaned forward slightly. Brian's Aunt Margaret. His Uncle Thomas. Catherine's college roommate Patricia. All of them waiting for tears, for denials, for the satisfying spectacle of watching someone crumble. Natalie's phone stayed steady, recording. Brian stared at his plate, shoulders hunched, complicit in his silence. Sarah pulled out her phone, opened the folder labeled Truth. Her hands didn't shake. Not anymore. "I've been documenting things," Sarah said, voice carrying clearly across the crystal and china. "For 2 years. I want everyone to hear what I've heard, what I've lived with." She pressed play. Catherine's voice filled the room. Crystal clear. Unmistakable. The recording from 2 years ago, the one Sarah had captured in the hallway. "I don't care how many degrees she has. Brian married beneath him, and we all know it. That woman is exactly what you'd expect from that kind of neighborhood. Aggressive, entitled, probably only married him for the money." The room froze. Catherine's face drained of color. "Wait," Catherine said. "That's out of context." Sarah played another recording. "Catherine, at Christmas. Where are you really from?" "No, I mean originally. Your people." And another. Catherine to her sister-in-law. "Well, she's very articulate for someone from that kind of background. You'd hardly know." The gasp started. Patricia's hand went to her mouth. Uncle Thomas shifted uncomfortably. But Sarah wasn't finished. She played the recording from Easter brunch. Catherine's voice again, dripping with false concern. "Has anyone in your family actually gone to college before you, dear?" And then the worst one. The recording that still made Sarah's stomach turn. Catherine on the phone, thinking she was alone. The racial slur, casual as breathing. Aunt Margaret stood up from the table. "Catherine, my God. Now let's talk about theft," Sarah said, voice cutting through the chaos. She pulled up the documents on her phone, started projecting them on the screen for everyone to see. Bank statements, wire transfers, transaction records. The Wallace Family Trust was worth $4.8 million when Mr. Wallace died. It should be worth $5.2 million today. It's worth $3.1 million. Catherine has stolen $2 million from her own family. Offshore accounts. Fake property maintenance expenses. I have every transaction documented. She turned the phone slowly, letting everyone at the table see the evidence. The careful documentation of years of embezzlement. Catherine's signature on every fraudulent document. That's not. You don't understand the complexity of. Catherine was standing now, face red, composure shattered. And Brian's affair with Rebecca Langford? Sarah continued, relentless now. Catherine orchestrated it. Introduced them 6 months ago. Encouraged the relationship. Positioned Rebecca as the suitable replacement. I have the emails. The text messages. Everything. Brian's head snapped up. "Sarah, please." "Oh, and everyone should know," Sarah said, voice almost conversational now, "that according to Mr. Wallace's will, I was supposed to inherit $500,000 5 years ago. Catherine, as executor, never processed it. Never told me. Never told Brian. That's theft too." The room erupted. Voices overlapping. Uncle Thomas demanding to see the trust documents. Patricia backing away from Catherine like she was contagious. Aunt Margaret on her phone, already calling someone. Then Natalie's voice, small and panicked. "Mom! Oh my God, Mom!" Everyone turned to her. She was staring at her phone, face white. "It's live," she whispered. "My Instagram, it was connected to the Wallace Properties account. It's been streaming. Live. This whole time." She looked up, horror in her eyes. 3,000 people are watching. The number on her screen kept climbing. 5,000. 7,000. Brian lunged across the table for Natalie's phone. Crystal shattered. Champagne spilled like blood across the white tablecloth. He grabbed for it, but Natalie stumbled backward, and the phone clattered to the floor, still recording, still streaming. Chaos consumed the Westmore Club's private dining room. Catherine trying to grab phones. Family members shouting questions. Patricia on her phone calling her lawyer husband. Uncle Thomas demanding answers about the trust fund. Natalie crying. Brian frozen in place like a man watching his entire life burn. Sarah stood, calm as a judge delivering a verdict. Everyone fell silent, turning to look at her. "You tried to destroy me tonight," she said quietly. "You forged documents, made false accusations, contacted my employer and the authorities with lies. You thought I'd break." She picked up her purse, smoothed her white dress. "But I'm not the one who should be worried about the authorities, Catherine. I'm not the one who's been committing fraud for 5 years. I'm not the one whose racism just went viral." She walked toward the door, stopped, turned back. "Oh, and Brian, don't come home. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce. My terms this time." Then Sarah walked out of the Westmore Club, leaving pandemonium in her wake. Behind her, she heard Catherine screaming, Natalie sobbing, voices shouting over each other. Her phone buzzed in her hand, texts flooding in. The video was everywhere, but Sarah didn't look back. She walked out into the Boston night, head high, finally, devastatingly free. By morning, the video had 17 million views. Sarah woke to her phone vibrating constantly, notifications flooding in faster than she could read them. Hashtag Justice for Sarah was trending worldwide. Someone had clipped the moment Catherine's racism played for the room, the moment her face drained of color. Another clip showed Sarah's calm recitation of the embezzlement evidence. The full 40-minute video was everywhere, dissected frame by frame on social media. The media descended like locusts. CNN, MSNBC, local Boston stations camped outside Sarah's building. Racist mother-in-law exposed after attempting to frame daughter-in-law. Boston real estate maven accused of million-dollar fraud. Anniversary dinner ambush backfires spectacularly. By day 3, the criminal investigation was official. The Massachusetts Attorney General's office announced they were examining the Wallace Family Trust for evidence of embezzlement, fraud, and tax evasion. The FBI got involved when the offshore accounts surfaced. Catherine's lawyer issued a statement about misunderstandings and complex family dynamics. No one was buying it. TechVision Solutions held a press conference. Margaret Chin stood at the podium, professional and pointed. "We owe Sarah Wallace a profound apology. False allegations were made against a valued employee, allegations we should never have entertained for even a moment. Sarah's integrity is beyond question. We're offering her a promotion to senior vice president and public recognition of her contributions to this company." Sarah watched from her apartment, Dee beside her with coffee and pastries. "You going to take it?" Dee asked. "No," Sarah said. "I'm done proving myself to people who should have trusted me from the start." The divorce papers Sarah filed made headlines too. Substantial settlement. The $500,000 inheritance Catherine had stolen, plus interest. Half of everything Brian owned. Her lawyer, Victor Ortiz, had been ruthlessly thorough. Brian's lawyer tried to negotiate. Victor's response was simple. "My client has recordings, documents, and millions of witnesses. Your client can accept these terms or explain to a judge why he shouldn't lose more." Brian signed. Wallace Properties hemorrhaged clients. 3 major deals canceled within a week. The board voted to remove Catherine as CEO. Her face was everywhere, frozen in that moment when Sarah's recordings played, her carefully constructed mask crumbling in real time. Former friends gave interviews distancing themselves. "We had no idea. We never saw that side of her." Social exile wrapped around Catherine like chains. The arrest came 6 weeks after the dinner. Catherine Wallace in handcuffs, let out of her Beacon Hill brownstone. Charges: embezzlement, fraud, tax evasion, forgery. The perp walk went viral too. Her lawyer argued for bail. The judge, A black woman named Thompson set it at $2 million. The irony was noted by everyone. Brian's law firm put him on administrative leave pending review of conduct issues. His partnership was withdrawn. His reputation, built on his family name and Catherine's connections, crumbled like sand. Rebecca Langford gave one interview, carefully worded, devastatingly honest. I had no idea I was being used to destroy someone's marriage. Catherine positioned it as if Sarah and Brian were already over. I feel sick knowing I was part of her scheme. Natalie appeared at Sarah's door on a Thursday evening. Sarah almost didn't answer, but something in Natalie's face through the peephole looked broken in a way Sarah recognized. I'm testifying against her, Natalie said, standing in the hallway. No preamble, just truth. The prosecutors need someone who can speak to pattern of behavior. I'm giving them everything. Every text she sent telling me to undermine you. Every conversation where she planned this. Why now? Sarah asked. Because I was terrified of her my whole life. I let that terror make me cruel. I participated in destroying you because I was too scared to stand up to my mother. Tears streamed down Natalie's face. That's not an excuse. There is no excuse. But I'm done being her soldier. And I'm so sorry. Sarah didn't forgive her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But she nodded. Thank you for telling the truth. 2 months after the dinner, Sarah accepted a position at Bright Path Solutions, a tech firm founded by Imani Harris, a black woman who'd built her company from nothing and now competed directly with the giants. The office was in Cambridge, modern and bright, filled with people who looked like Sarah, who understood without explanation. Welcome to Bright Path, Imani said, shaking Sarah's hand on her first day. We're glad you're here. Just be yourself. That's all we ask. Just be yourself. Sarah had spent 4 years making herself smaller, quieter, more palatable. Spent 4 years earning approval that would never come. Now she stood in an office where her natural hair wasn't a statement, where her voice wasn't too loud, where her presence wasn't a problem to be solved. Sarah smiled. I can do that, she said, and meant it. 1 year after the dinner at the Westmore Club, Sarah stood on a stage in front of 800 women. The ballroom at the Boston Convention Center hummed with energy. The Women of Color Leadership Summit. Her keynote speech. Behind her, a screen displayed her title, Vice President of Communications, Bright Path Solutions. She'd been promoted 6 months ago, not because she'd proven herself by shrinking, but because she'd shown up fully, completely, unapologetically herself. Imani Harris had looked at Sarah's work and said simply, "This is what leadership looks like." Now Sarah looked out at the sea of black and brown faces. Women who'd also code-switched through corporate meetings. Who'd also swallowed microaggressions like bitter pills. Who'd also wondered if speaking up would cost them everything. Silence isn't strength, Sarah said, her voice carrying to the back of the room. For years, I believed that keeping quiet, staying professional, never showing anger was how I'd succeed. I thought my silence would protect me. It didn't. It just made me invisible while people who should have valued me tried to destroy me instead. She told her story. Not all of it. The highlights. Catherine's racism. The forged documents. The anniversary dinner ambush. The recordings she'd kept for 2 years. The moment she finally spoke. Your voice is your power, Sarah said. Not your ability to disappear. Not your willingness to accept the unacceptable. Your voice. Your truth. That's what they're afraid of. That's what changes everything. The standing ovation started before she finished speaking. 800 women on their feet. Some crying. Some cheering. All of them seeing themselves in Sarah's story. All of them understanding what it cost to finally speak. Catherine's trial had concluded 3 months ago. Guilty on all counts. 5 years in federal prison. Full restitution of the embezzled funds plus penalties. Her lawyer had tried everything. character witnesses, mental health defenses, claims of family stress. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. The recordings Sarah had made, played in that courtroom, left no room for reasonable doubt. The Wallace family had fractured like dropped china. Natalie was rebuilding her life in Portland, working for a nonprofit, in therapy 3 times a week. She'd sent Sarah a letter, not asking for forgiveness, just acknowledging harm. Sarah had read it once and filed it away. Brian was alone, living in a studio apartment in Somerville, working as a contract lawyer for a firm that didn't know his name. His mother in prison, his sister across the country, his reputation destroyed. Exactly what he'd earned. He showed up at Bright Path on a Tuesday afternoon. The receptionist called Sarah's office. "There's a Brian Wallace here to see you?" Sarah almost said no, then decided she wanted to see him one last time. Wanted to see what 4 years of marriage and 1 year of consequences looked like. He was smaller than she remembered. Not physically, but diminished somehow. Hollowed out. He stood in the lobby holding flowers, looking like a man who'd rehearsed this moment 100 times. "Sarah," he said, "thank you for seeing me." She didn't invite him to sit. Just stood there, arms crossed, waiting. "I'm sorry," Brian said. "I was weak. I let my mother control me. I should have protected you. I should have chosen you." He swallowed hard. "Can we try again? Can we start over?" Sarah looked at him for a long moment. Remembered loving him once. Remembered believing he loved her back. "You let your mother call me the N-word at your family's dinner table," Sarah said quietly. "You sat there while she forged documents to frame me for crimes I didn't commit. You recorded what you thought would be my humiliation. You chose silence every single time I needed you to speak. You let her steal my inheritance. You cheated because she told you to." Sarah shook her head. "There's no coming back from that, Brian. There's no version of the future where I trust you again. Sarah, please. I hope you find peace. I hope you learn to stand up for something. But you won't do it with me. Goodbye, Brian." She turned and walked back to her office. Didn't look back. Heard him leave. The flowers abandoned in a lobby trash can. That Sunday, Sarah sat at Dee's dining room table surrounded by chosen family. Dee's husband Thomas. Their daughter Zoe, Sarah's goddaughter. Dee's parents. Sarah's parents, visiting from Philadelphia. Laughter and good food, and people who'd loved her before she had titles and viral videos. Zoe, 9 years old and full of questions, looked at Sarah seriously. "Auntie Sarah, at the dinner when you had to stand up to those mean people, were you scared?" Sarah smiled, squeezed Zoe's hand. "Terrified, baby. I was so scared I could barely breathe." "Then how did you do it?" "Because I was more scared of staying silent. I was more scared of letting them win than I was of fighting back." Later that night, Sarah stood in her own apartment, looking at her reflection in the bedroom mirror, really seeing herself for the first time in years. Not the woman who'd tried to earn Catherine's approval. Not the wife who'd swallowed her anger to keep peace. Just Sarah. Whole. Powerful. Free. "They thought my silence was weakness," she thought. "They were wrong. I was just choosing my moment. And when I spoke, the whole world listened." The truth doesn't need permission. It just needs courage. And sometimes the cruelest thing someone can do to you becomes the greatest gift, because it shows you who you really are and what you're truly capable of. Sarah smiled at her reflection. Tomorrow she had 3 speaking requests to review. A mentee to meet with. A company to help build. A life to live out loud. She was ready.